Hello, I'm Shawn Murphy, and this is Data That Moves Us, the podcast from the Limb Loss and Preservation Registry. We explore how high quality data translates into improved outcomes that drive better care for people living with limb loss and limb difference. Today we're joined by Dennis Clark, founder of Clark & Associates in Waterloo, Iowa. Dennis brings decades of experience in prosthetics and orthotics, along with a deep commitment to patient-centered care and outcomes that truly matter. In this conversation, we'll talk about how clinical insight and real-world data intersect, what it takes to deliver meaningful outcomes in limb care, and how practitioners like Dennis are shaping the future of the field. Dennis, please introduce yourself and tell us how you chose O&P as a career.
My name is Dennis Clark. I'm a certified prosthetist orthotist. My father was an amputee, lost his leg to cancer at 15. He got into prosthetics, and I followed him into the profession when I was 14 years old. I started as a technician and a janitor for my father when he was getting his business started when I was 14 years old. So I'm 58 years in right now.
After all that time in O&P, what gaps in patient care or data did you see that you were trying to solve for when you invented the OPOS-1 device?
I'm a type 2 diabetic, and I hated poking my finger, and I hated people asking me how I was doing. So finally, I got a remote therapeutic monitoring device, a little glucose monitor that sticks in the back of my arm. And immediately, I did a better job of managing my diabetic care because on a daily basis, multiple times a day, without having to do anything special, I could look at my phone and see how I was doing. Not only did my diabetic care improve, but I lost 100 pounds. I started doing things better. And it was almost like I was playing a game with myself and I could see the results all the time on my phone. And as soon as I did that, I thought, that's what we need in prosthetics and orthotics. We need a way for patients to easily see how they're doing, what they're doing. Are they walking more? Are they walking less? Are they wearing their orthosis or prosthesis more or less? How can we do that? And so I started on a journey in 2020 to create a platform with a remote therapeutic monitoring device that could tell when you're walking, measure your number of steps, and tell when you have your prosthesis or orthosis on and for how many hours. And by doing that, we would know really the impact of the care we're providing, not just that all of a sudden they've had an amputation and now the pant leg is full and they're up and walking around. Patients don't know what to expect many times when they're a new amputee. They know they broke an arm or broke a leg because they've got a lot of friends that have been through that. But they didn't know anybody maybe that ever had an amputation. How should I be doing? How much should I be doing? Should I be getting better? Is this as good as it gets? And then later down the road, after you've had your prosthesis for a while and you change components or you change suspension systems or something, how's that really affecting your care? Are you able to do more? Are you more functional? And so I wanted a way to objectively measure that, not just have a conversation about it, but to have real data, real validated data, and be able to show that and use that to help manage care. So that's where the OPOS-1 platform came from.
That's a great story. It reminds me of just firing up that competitive nature in people. I mean, even
Oh,
you see people with their Apple Watch and they're constantly monitoring steps and VO2 and,
and, and we can talk about
monitoring a
that
lot of
too.
health points.
We can talk about that too. One of the things that's unique about OPOS-1 is that it's been validated for this patient population. So, yeah, we've got an Apple Watch. We can do our step count. But you know what happens when grandma goes to the museum? She walks all over the Natural History Museum, but she walks at such a slow pace, it doesn't pick it all up. She hasn't taken very many steps. So we needed to validate this and make sure that the IMU within our sensor would pick up all of those slow steps because early on with an orthosis or a prosthesis, you walk very slowly and you don't have a real distinct heel strike and a real distinct rapid motion. So we needed to pick all of that up. And so we kept fine tuning so that we could walk at an incredibly slow pace and still measure every step.
It's amazing. So, at a practical level, how does the OPUS-1 really work? What is it exactly measuring And how does it capture what's happening with the patient in real
Sure.
time?
So we take the sensor and it has an adhesive backing, and we just stick it onto the side of an orthosis or a prosthesis. In the beginning, because I'm a prosthetist, I tried to build it in. We would have a dummy and we'd laminate over the top and all that. And
Right.
finally, the engineers at the company I was using or am still using with Opus said, "Why are you doing that? You're making it so difficult. Let's just put a silicone cover over it to protect it and stick it on the outside." So the goal was to make something that was invisible, weightless, and free. And that's always our goal in orthotics and prosthetics. We came pretty close on two of them. It's not absolutely free, but it knows when you start to move. So it's not using up battery time or anything like that while the prosthesis or orthosis isn't being used. But as soon as you start to take a few rhythmic steps, it knows that you're walking and it's now counting those steps. And even when you're just sitting at a desk or on a chair, if you're alive, you're making little movements all the time. And it realizes those movements, so it knows that that's wear time. So you may have only taken 200 steps so far today, but you've had your prosthesis on for 2 hours because you walked
Okay.
200 steps to your desk in your home. And now you're collecting wear time, but not steps at that point. So inside of the sensor as an IMU, it will just measure movement and tell us exactly how many steps you've taken and how long you've worn your orthosis or prosthesis. And then as that level changes, then we know you're getting more and more active, or maybe something's happening and you're having some exacerbation of your disease process, or you've shrunk and it's not fitting as well, or something like that. And you can see the decline. Your clinician can see it also. So the data connects to your phone and then gets uploaded to the cloud, and then the practitioner can see it and the patient can see it. You don't have to be in the office to know that you're having a problem. We've got something going on. We need to monitor that. And you
That's
can have
great.
those discussions and manage your care that way.
That's great. Is there anything about how it works that would be novel or surprising to clinicians or patients? I mean, I think it's pretty cool that you're just sticking this device onto your
Yeah.
prosthesis,
Um,
orthosis.
One of the novelties is how easy it is. It is so easy to onboard a patient. You go to the app store and you download the app. The app tells you go ahead and hit the button. Now you're synced to your phone. And from that moment on, it's collecting data whenever you're up and about. Whenever you're wearing your orthosis or prosthesis, it's collecting the data. That is a wonderfully novel thing. The next novel thing is we can say, okay, this is how many steps you normally take in a day. So when you're looking at your data, you're not looking at numbers. Nobody wants to look at numbers. You want to take a quick look. So does the physician. They don't want to read through an Excel spreadsheet, although we have it in the background. Nobody wants to do all that. You want to just take a quick look and say, hey, am I trending in the right direction or am I trending in the wrong direction? If you're hitting 50% or less of the normal steps that you take in a day, you're going to get a little red bar on a bar graph. Between 50 and 75%, you're going to have a yellow bar. And if you're over 75% of your normal, your personal normal in a day, well, you're going to get a green bar. And patients absolutely love coming in and saying, hey, I've been in the green for 18 days in a row. I've been in the green for 20 days in a row. I had to walk a little bit before I came in today because I wanted to be in the green before I got here. And they're playing a game with themselves, but it's such a great motivating factor for them. And then as they improve and go higher and higher and higher in their step count, we can move those numbers and make it so that they've still got to work a little bit to get to that. And so that's one of the unique things about this. Another unique thing is we've clinically validated the data. And I'm a prosthetist, so I think everything takes 2 weeks to 3 weeks to do. We had the data clinically validated at the motion analysis lab at the Mayo Clinic
Mm.
in Rochester, Minnesota. There aren't very many places that can do this kind of validation and have it be accepted. And to do that validation, you have to not only do all the research, but you have to publish. It has to be in peer-reviewed articles. You've got to do all those types of things. And we've done all of that. So the Apple Watch and some of the other pedometers that are out there will tell you a little bit about your step count and all that, but it hasn't been validated for our patient population. So that's another unique feature here. This is an FDA registered type 1 medical device. And the beauty of that is that means that the physicians that use it, providers that have patients that are using this data, can actually bill for this data just like they do for my glucose monitor when
Wow.
utilizing this data to make medical decisions for their patients. It's been validated for our patients. It's a FDA registered device. We also had to go through a FCC compliant process because we're using Bluetooth. So it's been through all of those processes so that you know it's quality data, it's real data, it's been validated, it's real world data. If we wanted to do a 2-minute walk test in our clinic, that's great. But if I did a 2-minute walk test in the building I'm in now, which is a 29,000 square foot office building for orthotics and prosthetics, it would be a little bit different than the office I have in Marshalltown, Iowa, which is 1,100 square feet. So I can't get up and walk very far and turn and walk back and sit back down in the chair. It's all set up differently. So every time you do a 2-minute walk test, every clinician that does it a little bit differently. It's hard sometimes to gather all that data and who's sharing that data. The data that we collect here is real world data, not just in a clinical setting.
Right.
Because most of
So
the time they don't get up, make a left hand turn, take X number of steps, turn back around, come back, make a right hand turn, and sit down without using the arms on the chair. That's not the way we act in the real world.
so
Yeah.
in addition to the step count and wear time, what other kind of data points might it be collecting? And how is
We
that
can,
different than
yeah,
what clinicians collect today? Like you said, this is more real world movements than
sure.
what's scripted in an office.
I think about many times on behalf of our friends at AOPA. I've gone out and gone door to door at the Capitol talking about the great work that we do as credentialed practitioners. And we take a bunch of patients with us that are great patients that walk so well and they have their shorts on and they're really doing well. And it's a really moving experience and it's wonderful. But the first question that the people in Senator Duckworth's office are going to say is, where's the data? Where's your information? Where's a published research study? Most of what we have is anecdotal data. My patients do great. My patients love me. All of my patients wear their prostheses all the time. It's anecdotal data. It's wonderful. It's true, but it's not research. When the physicians who are working with arthritic patients go in, they know what the impact is of the care they're providing based on the functional change in the patient's life, reduction of need for pain meds, increased mobility, all those types of things. We don't have that data. We're collecting outcomes. Don't get me wrong. We're collecting outcomes and they're very valuable. But that's primarily patient reported data. I'm doing well. And the patient reported data, it reminds me a little bit sometimes, and I'm not putting it down. I think it's very important, but it reminds me a little bit of the survey that after I had my oil changed. Was it easy to get an appointment? Well, what does that have to do with changing my oil? Was the area that I sat in while I waited while they did it, was it nice? Did people explain to me what they billed? And was my car clean when I got it back? Well, that doesn't really tell me anything about the oil they put in or the function and what it did to my car. And the same thing happens with some of the questions we ask. The questions are really slanted at times to make us look great, and they do. And patients do very, very well. And having some information is better than having no information. But real world data so that we can truly be measured on the impact we have on patients' lives and not just the cost of the product we provide. Right now, the only way we get measured, or it seems like the only way we get measured, is by cost. And I wanted to be able to show the real world impact of the quality care we provide. And so that's my big motivation. That's my give back to our profession is let's show people the value of the care we provide.
So you talked about the surveys, the outcome surveys that are done in the clinician's office. So how would
Mhm.
that data be used in conjunction with
Oh, I think
the
you use
OPUS
both.
data?
You
How
use both
it,
and you use them in
mhm.
real time. Absolutely. I had the sweetest gal. She was my mom's age. She was absolutely thrilled with her prosthesis because on Wednesday night she could go to choir practice and on Sunday she could get up into the choir loft and sing with her choir. Her goal after her amputation was to continue with the choir at her church. It wasn't to run a 100-meter dash. It wasn't to go to Target and shop for 2 hours, or it wasn't to go to a ball game. It wasn't to do all of these things. Her ultimate goal was Wednesday night practice, Sunday morning at church. That was her goal. Was she to a certain extent not walking that many steps, not wearing her prosthesis that much? Yeah, that's very true. But if you looked at her patient satisfaction surveys, if you looked at her outcome surveys, it was meeting all of her goals. And she was absolutely thrilled. And she enjoyed talking to people about how she was using her prosthesis because it was meeting her goals. That's so important. I don't know how to turn that off. That's so
It
important.
is. Mhm.
I think it's great to have both things and to have them time stamped. So we can actually do some of those outcome surveys on the same app. And now you've got the real world data combined with how they feel about their functional status, their real world objective data capture. Here's what it means. And now you've really got powerful information.
Have you had any opportunity yet to look at the Opus One data and see where that information has really changed an outcome for a patient, or what would have happened with that patient had you not had that real world data?
We haven't been doing it long enough and we don't have enough patients on it. And I'll tell you the honest answer why. I went to a lot of shows and told people about it, and they just thought this is the greatest thing since sliced bread. And everyone wants the evidence, they want the outcomes. Every conference we go to, every magazine we look at talks about evidence based care.
Right.
That's just such a critical issue. But we're also being compressed in terms of reimbursement. And so there aren't that many people using our sensor because they can't get paid for it. The physicians can, the therapists can. But the orthotists and prosthetists are not providers, they're suppliers. And consequently, they can't bill the CPT codes that are used for this type of management, this
Right.
type of data collection. And I understand. Now, we're all spending money collecting outcomes data. We're all spending money doing all this stuff. If you would compare the two, personally, I think you're ahead using the sensors. But a pen and a piece of paper is pretty inexpensive. The problem with that is we can't get all of the data from all over the place. And that's
Right.
why it was so important to me that I'd be able to give this data as we were using it to the registry so that it would be another resource for the registry. I offered all of the data that we collected to the registry at no cost to the registry so that we could use this data to tell our story and to combine it with the overall medical spend. And there are
Right.
some things that I'm going to be excited to tell you about at some point with some research things that we're doing now that I think can really help our profession move forward. And we can do that with real world validated data.
There's the Opus One, changing the way that we can visualize and see real world patient experiences, lived experience. How often are they using the prosthesis? What's the wear time? How many steps they're taking? So
Mhm.
when you apply this into the patient population of limb loss and limb preservation, what's the next thing with this? You want to get great usage with this and expand your user base. So do you see more types of these sensors or more digging into the data, predictive analytics from the data that you'll already be collecting
Well,
and
I'm a
have that?
businessman. I don't want to see more types of these sensors. You can go ahead and use mine. But digging into the data, you're
Yes.
exactly right. Right now, we're doing a research project, or a research project is being done also at the Mayo Clinic on 50 patients. And they're actively tracking 50 patients. And these patients are all type 2 and type 3 K levels. Okay. So K2 and K3 patients. And the idea, let's decide, does a K2 patient actually utilize variable cadence? Do they have variable cadence in their ambulatory status? Because variable cadence, K3 level care, is when we get a little higher level prosthetic component. Maybe a prosthetic component that allows a little more functional status, a prosthetic component that reduces fall risk a little bit better. And if we could qualify those K2 patients along with those K3 patients, if we could prove that all of those patients have variable cadence in their ambulatory status, then maybe they all qualify for that higher level of care based on real world objective clinical data, not just, I wish they should. I think you ought to consider this. Here's the data that shows it. And so the research study comparing K2 to K3, their ambulatory status and variable cadence has been accepted. The person that's doing that study, PhD candidate Sydney Lundell at the Mayo Clinic, is going to be presenting in July of 2026 at the World Conference of Biomechanics in Vancouver, Canada. And she's going to be presenting her dissertation there. It's also going to be published, so that's another requisite for the things that we do. But here's a real world research project showing, again, the value of care and showing that those K2 patients may actually function at a level that would qualify them, like the K3 patients, for that higher level of prosthetic care. And again, that higher level of prosthetic care means they're more functional. More functional means they're healthier. More health means a reduced overall healthcare costs. All the things that the registry can show us over time. And so this is a critical research project, and I think going to make a big difference in the orthotic and prosthetic universe.
Great. When Sydney's paper is published, you have to send us the link so we can
Yep.
share that with our participants.
Absolutely,
Yeah,
absolutely. And she's the one that did the validation project too. So I've been working with
good.
Sydney for a couple of years now.
So we've been talking a lot about real world data, and
Mhm.
that's something that's kind of new-ish in the O&P industry. Everything has been kind of forms-based surveys, observation. So what's the one thing that you think clinicians or even hospitals, health systems should better understand about the value of this real world data and how it can be applied in their practice?
If we look at the real world data and then go back to the type of therapy they received, and then go back to when in the process they finally had the amputation, and then drill a little bit deeper and talk about the type of amputation and how the closures were done and how we tied off the muscles and all those types of things. Wouldn't it be great to have real world data to help us improve in every one of those steps for the patient? And now we're stepping into this osseous integration process. And wouldn't it be great to be able to say, hey, this patient, although they're delayed a little bit because of this is the functional status that they achieve sooner than going through the other process. And these are the net effects long term versus the other process. Rather than just saying, my patients don't need that, or this is what everybody needs. Let's have real world data to make those types of decisions. Again, orthotists and prosthetists need to be part of the medical team, part of the decision-making process. But to do that, you've got to have data, and you've got to have information, and you have to have something to share that shows the value of what you do. And that's where remote therapeutic monitoring, and that's where our profession can shine.
Be very powerful. I hope you get through the study good and get to have the presentation. It gets published. I think that will help a lot and get the Opus one out there. I mean,
Mhm.
wouldn't it be great if at some point, looking ahead down the road, so let's look, 15 years ahead, Opus one is out there. Do you ever see a point in time where some a device like this could just be purchased by the patient and they just voluntarily wear this
Sure.
and load their data up and then not have to worry about having the right CPT code to get such a
Well,
monitoring device?
with my endocrinologist, all she does is prescribe it. I go and pick it up at the pharmacy and she gets the data and she gets paid because she uses that data on a monthly basis to help manage my care. Why can't it work the exact same way with the sensors? We built the sensors, by the way, to last for 6 months without having to charge them,
Wow.
without having to do anything to it. You just put it on and it'll collect data even with those 14-hour a day wears, heavy wears, 14 hours a day, 6 months.
Mm.
Actually, the first one went almost 10 months. So we can collect data for a long time and then you replace it. But the data is absolutely invaluable and the cost is so minimal.
So, in closing, how do you think the role of data and data sharing and the registry and devices like Opus One, how do they all get us to the future of better care? So, if we start sharing more data and,
Yep.
like you said, we pull all of this together, how do we use all of this in an easy way? Like you're saying, you have to have the analytics and the graphs for the prosthetist. How do we put all that together in a way that can be used towards patient outcomes? Is it through research into the data or more?
It'll start with research. There's no question.
Mhm.
It will start with research, and once we have that research, then we've got real things to look at and real things to measure against. As we're creating new suspension systems, new functional status with feet and knees and ankles, hip joints, all the different things that we're replacing, wouldn't it be great to know for this patient population, this works well? If you see this, then you might consider this, all the different things that we do in medicine all the time. We have constant changes in care for many different disease processes, but the changes in orthotics and prosthetics, it's not enough to just change the way we fabricate things. And the way you fabricate shouldn't be the way you're measured in terms of providing care. You're managing functional status. And that functional status is a composite of fit, alignment, suspension, functional components, all these different things that weigh into your management of a patient's needs. We're not just filling pant legs. We're helping people go back to as much function as they can possibly have. And to do that, we have to be able to measure the change and show how you got there. And that's what the registry can do. That's what the sensor can do. And that's what sharing the data can do.
Very well said. Dennis, thank you for your time today.
Oh, it was my pleasure. Thank you for inviting me.
Thank you for joining us on Data That Moves Us. Whether you're a clinician, researcher, patient advocate, or other expert, your voice and your experience matter. Stay connected with us on social media through LinkedIn and Instagram. Together, we're building the evidence that drives better outcomes. To learn more about the Limb Loss and Preservation Registry and how to join, visit our website at llpr.org and become part of the movement.